everyone. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here with one of my absolute favorite people, one of the most important leaders in medicine, one of the great dissident doctors, really a hero of our contemporary moment, and that's Dr. Chris Flowers. Welcome, Dr. Flowers.
Hi, Naomi.
So for those few of you out there who don't yet know Dr. Flowers' work, I know him as one of the, I'm going to say most distinguished, but also acknowledging that everyone we have is also extraordinarily distinguished, volunteers at the WarRoom DailyClout Pfizer Documents Research Analysis team. He's broken many, many important stories, including among the first important stories, which was that he found that Pfizer and thus the White House and the FDA knew that minors were sustaining heart damage, myocarditis, a week after being injected with the mRNA vaccine. Many other important stories. He has been a diagnostic radiology specialist in San Francisco, California at UCSF. He has practiced and is affiliated with UCSF Medical Center at Mount Zion and Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center, and has many other distinctions. He's a specialist in breast cancer and radiology, and that is, of course, exploding in the news because so many people are coming down with fast-growing cancers subsequent to receiving the mRNA injection. So let's turn to the news. I wanted to make this podcast available to members of our research team to update the devoted audience on what you all are finding. So first tell me general updates and then talk to me about Brazil, please.
Oh, there are so many breaking stories from micro reports that we're producing on the committees, the fact that the vaccine, in inverted commas, should really be classified as a gene therapy product and gone on a totally different committee for evaluation.
Oh, wow.
Of course, they missed all the DNA contamination, which again has been multiple stories about that. But the most important thing really that's been happening over the past 6 months really is the impact that the DailyClout Pfizer volunteers have been having on the hearings we've been taking part in different countries. For example, I was able to voluntarily testify on behalf of the DailyClout Pfizer volunteers, the 3,500 we have who are so talented, so distinguished in all their different fields, and has really been an example of citizen research coming together. Now, I was able to testify on their behalf on the National Citizens Inquiry in Canada.
Oh, wow.
In the early summer of last year. Mm-hmm. And then a group in Brazil started to be concerned about the mandatory vaccination of babies up to the age of 5. And they started an advocate group, and they had a support director called John Cage. John Cage has been instrumental in pulling together a large group of international doctors who you all know, who've been testifying. And we've done 3 different testimonies in provincial centers over the period of August to November of last year. Mm-hmm. And then finally, after President Lula was alerted by the health minister and they decided to call us misinformation spreaders, they held a debate last week on Monday, the 26th of February, in the Brazilian Senate. That's in Brasilia. And people traveled to be there, but also several of us testified by Zoom. Mm-hmm. These include such luminaries as Peter McCulloch, Pierre Corey, Dr. Jessica Rose, Dr. Jim Thorpe, Dr. Geert van Bosch, and Andrea Stremezzi, plus myself, was able to talk about this. Wonderful. They're very, very concerned only at the moment about these mandates in the very youngest population, of course, which virtually every country in the world has ceased to actually mandate anymore, apart from our country with our vaccine schedules, and particularly Brazil. And so the thrust this time of my testimony, because it was really short, they only allowed us between 10 and 15 minutes because they had so much to get through. The summary of my report was basically based on our research on the forensic analysis of the Pfizer clinical trial, which was the basis for all the pediatric trials. So I talked about that, all our findings, the fact that they hid some of the deaths, which meant there was actually negative efficacy of the vaccine. And
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry. Could you just explain for our audience a little more about what you mean by they hid some of the deaths?
Yes, we actually have several reports on that. There's videos that Naomi has done with Dan Perrier and Professor Corinne Michaels about it. Dr. Knudsen in Australia has also done a video on it and presented the data in the Australian Parliament hearings. Now, this is basically some of the issues were the way Pfizer did not report the deaths that were happened during the trial. There was a cutoff, basically, of November the 10th, 2020, when they were doing the trial. And those ones are the group that were looked at for the emergency use authorization. And for some reason, we have the case report forms. We can actually see what happened to these people. And it turned out that they had been reported as having died, but it wasn't then forwarded to the FDA committees until 28, 35 longer days later, well after the time that they were looking at the EUA. Right. So we felt that based on that information, which was also strongly referenced in this with removed curious paper by Dr. McCulloch et al. Very recently, they quoted our research extensively. None of that was refuted by the journal in their pulling of that paper. But it just shows that the trial itself did not show reduction in deaths. Right. It didn't show anything really. It didn't show reduction in transmission because they didn't look for it. Wow. So what did it actually do apart from produce antibodies? Right. But then subsequent to that, of course, were the pediatric trials, and these really failed. And every time the committees looked at it, they said, well, it worked in older people, and therefore it's going to work in younger people. And so all of these trials were crazy. Oh my gosh. And one of the things that we found in one of the committee minutes was a quote by one of the chairmen talking about, we won't know if it's safe until we've tried it. Yes, that's so shocking. It's one of these tactics that some committees, some politicians use to try and hide what's actually going on. Unbelievable. So my theory of the case when it came to Brazil to present, here's the main trial, but it wasn't a normal clinical trial. It didn't show what you thought it showed. Wow. Here are the pediatric clinical trials. Oh, they didn't work properly. They excluded virtually everyone because most of the children vaccinated got COVID. Oh my gosh. Most. Oh my gosh. Yes. I missed that headline in the reports, or maybe it's not come out yet. You did. Do you mind if I correct you on that? Because you did notice it. Okay. It was in one of my reports, and that was my only interview on WarRoom. Oh wow! That more children got COVID. It was estimated. Talking about the pediatric trials because they just didn't work. Unbelievable. So you've broken so many important stories. Forgive me. That is yet another important headline. So basically, you said to the Brazilian Senate, right, that was considering the mandating of children to be injected with this vaccine, that the trials don't say what you've been told they say. They hid deaths in order to claim
efficacy and get the EUA. They reported the deaths after the EUA, which means emergency use authorization, time limit was over. So the deaths were not counted toward the assessment of the EUA. And they didn't look for whether the injection stopped transmission, even though we were all being told we had to get this to stop transmission and not kill grandma. And lastly, in minors, more kids got COVID if they were injected with vaccine than got COVID if they were unvaccinated. Is that a fair summary of what you told the Brazilian Senate?
Yes, I didn't even need to get into the severe adverse events, which I'd covered in previous testimonies, based on the amount of time I had. But I was just trying to make that argument that none of this evidence supports the mandating of vaccines in children.
Amazing. And so then what happened after you and these other experts testified?
Well, it's interesting because the Senate hearing was scheduled for 4 hours on the Monday morning, and it went well over 8 hours in total.
Wow.
8 hours, 13 minutes. It was attended by both senators and the federal deputies.
Oh, wow.
And they were so upset by the thing that they took a vote, and they basically voted for a commission to suspend the mandates and stop the giving of this gene therapy to children.
Unbelievable. Let's just pause for a minute there. Can we pause for a minute there and celebrate? I mean, first of all, on behalf of all those innocent Brazilian children and their parents, thank you, Dr. Flowers, and thank you to all the volunteers that you are representing here and who can't be here all in one video call with us, because you all have worked, just to step back for a minute, unrelentingly, tirelessly for over 2 years to bring the Brazilian Senate the conclusions that you've just distilled into a handful of minutes. And that is and as a result, they voted to save the kids. At least,
it's the first step in saving the children, but exactly. It's also the first step in a communist country where they're pushing back.
Wow.
Now what's going to happen? We wait and see. But the fact that in the Senate, we were surprised because, as you know, in Brazil, things are rather difficult right now.
Right.
And the fact that the Senate said yes to at least a commission,
right,
was an amazing first step.
Amazing.
On one hand, let's just pray that there's continued developments. But you say thank you to me, but it's not me. It's the volunteers who've done all this work.
Well, it's also you. It's all of us. But it's yes. Thank you to the volunteers.
But I know I was so excited because this is one of the first major things that the DailyClout has been involved in, both the National Citizens Inquiry in Canada and the commission in Brazil to save children. So, it's all very well us producing these endless reports that people have been able to refer to. But thankfully, the DailyClout is now actually changing things. Hopefully some donors might take notice and say, look, I really need to support the DailyClout in the work that you're leading.
Thank you. Thanks for that pitch on our behalf, and we'll be sure to send out. We'll send letters.
And send it out on social media.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because indeed it takes a lot of people and a lot of resources to get these results. But, I just want to thank and credit you it takes a lot of special skill, not just to help find those headlines, those analyses, you and your colleagues, but also in your case, and with their input, no doubt, to distill them and present them in ways that non-scientists can understand. And that's there are many great achievements of your group, but that's one of them. So, and also, thank God, Brazil is a giant country, and, it is just a first step. There are more children to save, but, you didn't save the kids of Luxembourg. God bless them. I hope they get saved too. But, it's millions and millions and millions of children that you have helped to save. And what a good feeling that must be. So now what our job is to take that testimony and this and write up a blog and try to and invite other heads of state to ask you all to testify to their parliaments and their senates. And hopefully we'll save all the kids. I can't believe they're still trying to mandate in Brazil. Well, I'm sure Pfizer has a very aggressive stronghold in Brazil, but that's a huge accomplishment. So in the time we have left, unless there's something more, one question I have before we go on to other updates you may want to share is, I know we don't speak Portuguese, but are you aware of any media coverage in Brazil of the Senate hearings there, the testimony?
Yes, there has been coverage. It's been fairly good coverage so far that's been shared with us.
Oh, great.
Most of the time they were sharing the message from Dr. McCulloch, who basically told them, just stop doing this. You're hurting children.
Wow.
He does it very well. I'm very happy for him to take the lead on that. So there has been some positive media from it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just mention something also that I
Sure.
thought was absolutely glorious during the testimony?
Yes.
The health minister decided she was not going to attend the hearing in person. So she plus another person from the Ministry of Health decided to produce questions on video for two for each of the international doctors, and they gave us 2 days notice so that we could translate it ourselves and then produce a rebuttal. Or
wow, exciting! Oh, you are media mavens. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, that was challenging, but there you go. My Portuguese is non-existent. Period. I speak a little Spanish, but that's it. But it turned out that the Minister of Health was asking, or she was basically questioning something I'd mentioned in one of the provincial inquiries when I was talking about the fact about the European COVID mandates and how there weren't any COVID vaccine mandates in the country of Denmark, for example. And so her question was, it's categorically untrue that they're limiting vaccines in Denmark for young children. And so I testified, and I pulled up the European vaccination guidelines.
Love it.
With all the different countries, and Denmark do not allow vaccination for anyone under the age of 65.
Oh,
and
wow.
only those over 65, it's only special groups, which is actually very similar to what the United Kingdom are doing as well.
Wow.
And so I was able to testify in Senate. The health minister is guilty of disinformation, and here are the receipts.
Oh my God! I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So I put it in my Substack. I've done a whole thing about this with her video, the translation of her question, and my testimony, and the evidence from the European with documents with the references. And so it was just glorious to be able to share the receipts with them and say, oops, someone's made a mistake.
Wow, that's fantastic. And, I really appreciate and applaud you moving so quickly and all the volunteers who participated to get that rebuttal and you to find the exact document that you could use to show her. And she deserves to be publicly shamed. I mean, the age of misinformation and disinformation from our elected officials and our health authorities has to be over. And it's up to people, like you and me and all of us listening to step forward and use every forum we have to say, this is not correct. This is the truth. So fantastic. Did she retract, or was there just crickets from her after that?
Crickets. Yeah, you wouldn't expect a response from there, really. Not after she told us that we need to be criminally prosecuted for testifying these falsehoods.
She didn't. You skipped over that. What happened? When did she?
That was another report that you blogged about.
Yes.
That covered that. That was after our last testimony in the provinces when she.
I didn't realize it was the same person. That's so.
Yeah, that's her. Who she was sitting alongside President Lula, who said we should be criminally prosecuted.
Unbelievable.
And so when I was called, they were begging me to fly down to Brasilia to testify in person.
That would be great.
And so I said, there is no way I'm going to fly into a communist country when the president and the health minister have called for me to be criminally prosecuted when I get past the airport. But I'm also, I'm not willing to go to Brazil because I'll be outside the US, and the CIA will have full access to me, and I don't want to be taken out at the same time. So there are good reasons I'm not going to travel to Brazil until people like Brian O'Shea deems it safe for me to travel.
That's right. That's smart. Wow. How dramatic. So you, welcome. You've become a targeted dissident, and you're making all the right decisions about keeping yourself and safe and keeping the volunteers safe while there's no reason not to be the tip of the spear virtually in a situation in which the ministers of the country are calling for your criminal prosecution. Good decision making. Wow, that's dramatic.
We like telling stories. I mean, but it's true, and it's just amazing to be being part of that, because up to now, really, we haven't. At the DailyClout, we personally, as volunteers, haven't had any calls for our prosecutions and things.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Naomi Wolf. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our valued partners at the Wellness Company. It's a time now when uncertainty is lurking everywhere. Preparedness is no longer an option at the margins, it's 100% necessary. And that's where the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit comes in. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit contains crucial medications such as ivermectin, emergency antibiotics such as amoxicillin, antivirals, Z-Pak. The kit is backed by the expertise of the Wellness Company and their team of renowned medical professionals, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. James Thorpe, Dr. Harvey Risch, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and other truth-seeking, truth-telling doctors. They have created a kit that sets the gold standard for safety and prevention, the ultimate preparedness solution. Don't wait for a medical crisis to catch you or your family off guard. Visit DailyCloutHealth.com and use promo code DailyClout for an exclusive 10% discount. Take charge of your preparedness and enjoy peace of mind. And please do support our wonderful sponsors, the Wellness Company. I wrote a book about the corruption of the beauty industry when I was 26 years old. And I've never promoted any skincare line because I didn't believe that they had honesty and integrity. This is the first that we've accepted as a sponsor. Charlotte is made by Charlene Bollinger, who has been a pioneer in natural remedies against cancer. And that's why I'm excited about this skincare line, because so many skincare products are toxic and have carcinogens or estrogen disruptors in them. In fact, the FDA says that you can call something non-toxic as long as it's only 49% toxic. So this is 100% non-toxic, and it is a luxury skincare line, but I think that it's very valuable nonetheless, because it's got, like, the first ingredient after water is aloe barbadensis leaf juice, which is real aloe. There's citrus reticulata peel, which is orange peel. There's thyme vulgaris flower leaf extract, thyme extract. There's glycerin, which I've talked about. Here's Loki. On the Wellness and Beauty series that I'm doing, glycerin is so good for your skin. It's a secret that women knew in the 19th century would protect your skin. So that's why I'm thrilled that there are sponsors. You're putting this on your skin every day, and put something on your skin that will protect it and nourish it. So this is Naomi Wolf. I'm 61 years old, which I happily tell everybody because age doesn't worry me anymore since I've discovered all these non-toxic alternative remedies. Thank you, Charlotte Beauty, for being our sponsor, and please support our wonderful sponsors at Charlotte Beauty. Go to charlotte.beauty, promo code DailyClout, and enjoy this lovely product. Thank you.
I know DailyClout is always under attack, but as people, we've not actually done that because we're using, as I said in my testimony, these are in Pfizer's own words from Pfizer's own documents, plus the minutes of the FDA, and CDC committees.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything that is outside of that. It's in their own words.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. That's why what Loki wants to join the conversation. That's why what you all have done is so historic and has had such an impact, because it's not your opinion, it's not your interpretation. You're highly qualified people presenting and linking to Pfizer's own words, Pfizer's own findings, and there's there's nothing to be done but threaten to prosecute you for bringing. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because this is the state of the world. That credible, credentialed people pointing to internal scientific documents created by the original manufacturers are accused of criminal misinformation. It's Alice in Wonderland upside down land when it comes to truth. But you've persevered, you and the volunteers and DailyClout together, and beautiful things are happening as a result, in notably for children. So is there anything else in our last few minutes that is happening with the volunteers or with your own findings that you want to highlight or alert people to coming down the pike? What other news do you want us to know about?
So first of all, I'd like to recommend the work of Team One, and what we're doing in Team One is looking at the committees, the role of the committees, and how they've approved things, also their conflicts of interest, and the revolving door nature that we have encountered between governments and committees and the manufacturers, both in the US and in Europe. We've noted that we're running a series now, trying to produce micro reports as fast as possible, plus larger reports that are going to be easily digestible.
Great.
Obviously, we have to keep an eye on certain persons writing guidelines and making things very, very digestible.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
It can be extremely challenging, as you've already mentioned to us many, many times. But we're getting there. We're working with Amy as well to get out reports in a timely manner to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
The other thing I'd like to bring forward from Team 3 is, after our first manuscript in a peer-reviewed journal, we're working on a second one right now.
Fantastic.
Looking at the severe adverse events, in particular the cardiac deaths and the Bell's palsy stroke neurological issues, which is quite a major thing, and has been vastly underreported, in fact, from their own documents. And we felt that we've got enough there for at least to submit a manuscript for publication.
Amazing.
Get a response based on that.
Amazing. Well, sorry, can I just jump in with the issue of neurological symptoms before you go on to your last point? I just want to tell everyone that you're the person who explained to me the exact mechanism whereby the materials in the injection damage nervous structures and processes. Is that a fair way to say it? Not just damage the myelin sheath, but damage the way nerves do that.
It's because for neurological, we have to look at the two different aspects of these products that are being put into people's bodies. The first is the lipid nanoparticle, which is really what we were talking about in particular, because they're made partly of fat. They combine with the cell membrane. They actually damage the myelin sheath, which is around nerves, which basically are the things that transmit the impulses down to the periphery of the body. But then there's the spike protein as well. So there are two different things, each of which need further research to determine the role of each. But we've seen from post-mortem studies in people who died suddenly the extent of the spike protein, where it is. It's even in the brain. It's just amazing just how far the spike protein remains, stays, and causes autoimmune reactions, which are basically fibrous plaques within the body affecting your body organs, which is totally crazy. So yes, you've said it quite correctly.
Wow. So I just want to share that I was recently at a potluck of people who probably are, mostly vaccinated. And I haven't been around such groups for a while. And I noticed like 3 different people had tremors. And, dear friends of mine have tremors since they've been injected. And that's a neurological symptom, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. There are two main things you're worried about there. Is that damage to the nerves, or is that in fact more central, a bit like in Parkinson's? There's an area in the base of the brain called the basal ganglia that get depleted of dopamine, and that's what caused basically one of the easiest way to understand how Parkinson's occurs, which is why if you give L-Dopa, for example, to people with Parkinson's, they suddenly wake from their sleep.
Oh my!
So that is all well known from the past.
Wow.
But there is very little research done on tremors and things like that currently in the post-vaccine age, if you like.
Right.
So it's totally different. From 2021, everything has changed. Nothing seems to be correct in medicine.
Right.
Cancer's gone off the scale, as you know, as we've talked about.
Yes.
An autoimmune disease, neurological disease, everything is going off the scale. And we're almost having to rewrite textbooks. And therefore, we need to do the research.
Yes.
And trying to get the research together, and be allowed to do it is a different matter, And
you'll need to talk to me about what you need in order to start. I don't want to say moving from, but eventually you'll be, done analyzing Pfizer documents, and people really need and are asking for cures and treatments. And let's talk another time about whether we can somehow enlist this incredible research body we have to orient some of their efforts toward, revising treatments or recommending treatments or examining treatments. And the last thing I want to ask you is, because I think there would be huge support for that. The last thing I want to ask you is, so from having watched what you've all revealed about the workings of Pfizer and the FDA, it's led me to not trust any pharmaceutical product. I mean, because there's no reason to think that the FDA was this lax with just this injection. We happen to have a window on their criminal laxity because of this lawsuit, but I don't know that my mother's statins didn't get waved through in the same way, or, they weren't approved through similar corrupted peer-reviewed studies. I don't know that, anything that anyone is prescribed, has been any better tested to get approved by the FDA, right? I mean, this seems the way, I'm not a scientist, but the casual way in which Pfizer gamed and perverted their many studies or trials or aspects of their trials, and the completely criminal way that the FDA waved through in a week, 450,000 documents that you all are still working on 2 years later, really makes me feel like I don't want to trust anyone to any pharmaceutical product, because I don't know. It just seems like that level of corruption was pretty normative, right? No one at any point said, hey, wait a minute, those are dead people over there you haven't reported, or hey, wait a minute, you're checking kids for markers of heart disease, and we need to tell everyone, or wait right here that you've unblinded the control. Like, none of that happened with corruption after corruption you've revealed. My point is, do you think that we need to kind of reevaluate all the pharmaceutical products, or press pause and kind of start over? Or,
yes.
I think that's what I'm thinking.
Let me address that, because I think the last few years have really taught us and open our eyes about the FDA. And when you look back, I know the FDA has changed since I started doing trials that were for FDA approval. And the amount of money, it's not just Pfizer, it's big pharma as a group, and the hospital industrial complex too. It's hospital systems as well as big pharma have corrupted the regulatory process such that the regulators are regulating themselves. Statins are a good example of providing an endless stream of income to these companies, and a lot of us have stopped our statins. It's really absolutely crazy. We're looking for other ways of looking after our health and making sure we live more healthy, and people forget that there is good cholesterol as well as bad cholesterol, and you've got to understand it properly to know what you're doing when you're taking any sort of treatment. But I agree with you that we need to start again. The FDA has really not served its needs, nor has the CDC, based on their, you go to their website, this is our charter.
Right.
You failed. Every single time you have failed.
Right.
So why would we support any regulation like this? We need to get rid of it, start all over. I'm all with RFK Jr. on this. That we really have to change the way we look at these things and start protecting the people of America.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it's just not being done. They're not safety.
They're not safe
that they used to be.
Right. Absolutely. And I think what we've all taken away from what you all have uncovered is that these monsters, even if they don't think they're monsters, are perfectly capable of harming us long term in order to get the, lifetime value of our dependency on these various products, which I never thought could be true. And now I know it's true. So I hope that we will all talk and convene and consider ways in which you all can also be enlisted to, point a way forward for safe, healing treatments that are not corrupted. I don't know the answer yet, but let's think about it, because this is too precious a resource to not direct that way. Well, and last question before I go, because my mom's on statins. Those of you who have stopped your statins, how's your heart health?
Good question. I've not been back to test, but I'm trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and I think that's far more important. We've been taught to fear in the last few years,
so true.
And part of the annual checkup that you go for is to keep you in fear.
Totally.
And that's when you get your next year's worth of 90-day supplies of scripts for whatever they think you need, not what you really do need.
Right.
And so we've got to also make sure that we're educated.
Right.
We take doctors' word for it without doing our own research, and I think that's one of the main things that we have to learn, that we need to be educated. We need to know things before we talk to someone who is a so-called expert.
Right.
I mean, they are experts in a way,
right.
But a lot of my medical colleagues don't understand the lengths of manipulation that they've been undergoing, and the sort of the psychological moves that come from the Academy of Pediatrics, all of these, the main groups that oversee specialists.
Right.
They don't understand all of that.
Right. I mean, it's more than being manipulated, right? I mean, now doctors are probably prescribing in fear, or seeing patients in fear, just like patients go to them in fear, because doctors have seen that if they don't follow the protocols, or the stated guidelines of the American Pediatric Association or the American Medical Association, they can be delicensed. So
I can tell you an anecdote from one of our volunteers in Team One, who you know very well. Had a word with his primary care physician, and basically the doctor told him off the record, he wasn't going to put it anywhere, that he had no option but to do this, that, and the other, because otherwise, he would lose his job, and and he has a wife and children to support, and basically he'd be blacklisted and lose his license. And this is the state we've come to.
And Dr. Flowers, that's not just in relation to the Pfizer injection, or
no, this was about other things. Why are you recommending this? Why are you recommending it? We're just asking questions.
Wow.
A copy of Pfizer Reports Volume 1 on his desk and saying, you might like to take a look at this and see what we have found. As your patient, please have a look.
Unbelievable. Well, we'll talk more about this if we can in the future, but I'll just close by saying I'm very interested that people as highly trained as all of you are taking an approach, and I'm not a doctor, don't arrest me. I always say that, like, I'm not a doctor, don't arrest me. Taking an approach, which I've started to take too, of, testing isn't benign, right? Testing can be weighted to find things, as we found with PCR tests. I found out to my horror how frequently false positives are given when people test for pregnancy. Sort of late pregnancy, is the baby okay? It's a 5% false positive, and then they recommend terminate the fetus. It's catastrophic. But I mean, those are just two that I'm aware of. But I know a lot of people who are kind of rethinking, and this is a change in my lifetime. People didn't used to go to their yearly checkup in fear and always leave with prescriptions or conditions. So I think a lot of people are taking the approach of, well, it's on me to change my lifestyle, change my diet, get my exercise, be as healthy as possible. And then I'll deal with something if I actually have symptoms, right? Is that pretty much your approach? I must say that you're glowing since you've stopped your statins. You're radiant, unless I'm misreading the timing of you stopping your statins. But you look like you're in wonderful health. What do you have to say to what I just shared?
No, I agree with you entirely. I've nothing other to say. That you've said it very well.
Interesting. And what about people who are watching this who say, well, that's too risky. By the time you have a heart attack or whatever, it's too late if you don't test.
Don't forget that, one of the selling points of the statins when they first started decades ago was, it reduces your risk of heart attack, reduces your risk of stroke. But it's very similar to some of the chemotherapy products that we used to have to talk to our patients about for cancer. And all it does, it reduces your risk by a certain percentage.
Right.
But if your risk of death or whatever recurrence is already low, and you're going to take a drug that gives you a tiny reduction in that tiny risk. Now, why would you accept those severe side effects? Think about the amount of chemotherapy that we give.
Right. Are there
serious side effects?
Yeah.
So the same as statins in particular. I suffered. I've had took statins for nearly 20 years, and I had muscle aches and things. These are all well known. And people dismiss it. It's just psychological. There's no real evidence that it happens, and yet everyone reports it. It's like,
goodness,
it's like a safety signal, but no one takes any notice. So you take an analgesic against the pain that you get.
Oh my God! Yes.
And this is basically what happens with big pharma is they give you something, you get the side effects, and therefore they've got the drug already for the side effects that you're going to have. So you take that, and then you get more side effects.
It's like a mafia type scam. I mean, when you think about it.
The best way of dealing with it is what we used to do with our elderly patients, the seniors in the geriatric hospitals. Is the first thing we did was to take them off their cocktail of 10 or 12 medications that had been put on over the years. They'd religiously taken, and unsurprisingly, virtually all of them got completely better, and you could just replace the ones that they really needed.
Right.
And they would go out of hospital with maybe one or two medications.
Oh my gosh. And they felt better. Unbelievable. Well, that is fascinating. And a lot of people watching are going to think about this very seriously. I'm going to share this with my mom. And so when you say that it's a relative risk reduction, is that what you're saying with statins?
Yeah, so, that it can reduce your risk, but it depends on your actual risk.
How do you know your actual risk?
How do you know it? Well, it's supposed to be calculated from the different levels of the different types of cholesterol and
I
triglycerides in your
see.
bloodstream.
I see.
But who sets that?
Right.
And you look back at the research, and the research isn't very good.
Right.
It's
Wow.
a Pfizer clinical trial in a sense. It's we give it to the population and we'll see what happens.
Oh my gosh.
It's always been like that for most things. It took a long time, for example, to prove that cigarette smoking caused lung cancer.
Right.
It took a huge trial,
Right.
population trial. Sir Edward Doll and his trial into that huge, great big population study.
Wow.
So just trying to prove things like this in a major, when everything's multifactorial. It's
Right.
not just cholesterol. There's other things. There's
Right.
stress in your life,
Right.
severe blood pressure, uncontrollable blood pressure. That's more likely to kill you than a slightly raised triglyceride level, which is
My God.
often passed down from one family to another. It's partly genetic,
And what about people with tachycardia or, other kinds of, heart attack? Should they be on statins in your view?
I wouldn't put anyone on statins if they've got tachycardia. I'd want to know, first of all, what's their troponin levels like? Are they suffering from subacute myocarditis, especially if they've been vaccinated? I have severe worries. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, my blood pressure is up since I had the vaccine. I said, why do you take the vaccine? How many times have I been telling not to take it, anymore? There's no reason to do so. They have tachycardias, it's called palpitations when you're aware of your heart beating inside your chest. And I said, have you had your troponin level done? No, they just tested my blood pressure. You need to ask your doctor to check your troponins. I was doing that when I went to have my annual physical. I wanted to know, did I have any raised troponins from when I had to take the first dose of this horrible product?
Right. So if you do have raised troponins and you don't want to take statins, what should you do?
Well, first of all, it's just like any patient who potentially could drop dead from myocarditis. We've experienced that, especially with youngsters. Now, we don't actually know the effect of, it's because troponins just indicate muscle damage inside the heart. Now, that could be due to a heart attack, but it can be due just to inflammation, and that can be due to having, pneumonia, all these sort of things, viral infections, or it can be autoimmune.
Right.
And you know how we can get autoimmune changes in the heart.
Right.
So I don't need to revisit all of that. So it's really, really complex, and people don't understand that it's not a simple one thing, therefore I can take a medication for that.
Right.
It's multifactorial. All you've got to do is to look after the various aspects of your life, and you're much more likely to be fine.
So then what you're saying is, if someone had tachycardia or has elevated troponin levels, they should handle inflammation in their body with like an anti-inflammatory diet. They should, make sure that they're not under stress. They should exercise.
No strenuous sports, no playing football. Not while you've got raised troponin. You want to have normal troponins. You shouldn't have raised troponins.
Okay. So should we tell all of our young people who've been vaccinated to get their troponin levels checked?
Well, I think it makes it's a sensible thing. Look, the FDA had asked, they were studying this, remember, in the pediatric population, when we weren't expecting, you don't expect myocarditis in youngsters at the age they were looking at. Wow. So as just a simple troponin level is a cheap test to do as part of a panel, and if it's normal, then you're fine.
And if it's not, you should not do a sudden intense exercise.
You need to find a cardiologist. You need to talk it through. Make sure that they supervise you getting your troponins back to normal.
Right.
You may have to have a cardiac biopsy. Who knows? It all depends. We don't know enough about this right now.
God.
Because everyone's up to now has been concerned about what's called clinical myocarditis, when you have symptoms.
Right.
But if you just have a raised troponin level, you have what's called subacute myocarditis. That's asymptomatic. You don't have any symptoms of it, but the signs of damage. And that's where the dangers occur from sudden death.
Oh
So
my
the
gosh.
last thing we want to happen is for you to have an arrhythmia because you've not been looking after yourself while you've had raised troponins,
Good God. So would you recommend that all of us listening who have like active young adults in our lives urge them to get their troponin levels checked and urge them to be overseen by a cardiologist just to be safe?
Well, I would say any person who's symptomatic definitely needs to be checked out,
Okay.
period.
Right.
If they're asymptomatic, they should still have an annual checkup with their primary care doctor. And they, at that stage, knowing the risks of myocarditis in youngsters, especially if they've received the vaccine, or we know now from Dr. Peter Hotez, that shedding is real when we've been told it's been a conspiracy theory. In that sort of situation, when they're having the annual checkup, I'd just say, as part of my routine blood workup, please order a troponin level for me.
Right. All right. Thank you for that information.
Normal or not.
If there were a way to do a remote test, to get the troponin levels checked and then consult remotely a dissident cardiologist. I mean, maybe some companies that we know of are doing this already, but that would be a winner. I mean, we need to rebuild an alternative medical system. And right now, I don't want to send my mammogram to, New Vance Health to get it read by, I don't know if there's like a D for dissident by my name in my medical coding. Do you know what I mean? And so I literally would want all of my tests read by people I trust outside allopathic medicine.
There is a dissident code in your medical file. There is an ICD code for people who refuse to take the vaccine. So whether you've had a serious adverse event or not, there is an ICD code. That news came out, I think it was about 18 months ago.
Oh my gosh.
So it is in your EMR if you have refused the vaccine.
Emergency medical record? What's
No, it's your electronic medical record. So that's in your hospital system.
And there's no way to edit that out or to say
medical
that's
record
a violation?
It would be a violation to remove that from your.
I didn't tell anybody. Well, I guess when they take you in, they ask you, and then you have to tell them so that they can treat you. And so they got their vaccine passports, even though we didn't let them get their vaccine passports. Those monsters, honestly, those monsters, it's catastrophic. Well, this has been super fascinating and so much food for thought. Very important, everyone. The second Pfizer Documents book with headlines you will not believe is coming out this time, published by Skyhorse Press. They published the real Anthony Fauci and other really distinguished dissident books, and it's coming out in May. So you can go to Amazon and pre-order it. Some of the reports that we've mentioned here, Dr. Flowers' report, the other volunteers' reports, they're all in volume 2 called the Pfizer Papers. And where can people find you? Dr. Flowers will be publishing, if Dr. Flowers lets us, the Substack he mentioned about the Brazilian threats. And where can people find you and follow you? And thank you, Dr. Flowers.
So on Getter, I am Chris Flowers, MD. And my Substack is Dr. Chris Flowers, MD. Or you can search a bunch of flowers. That's the easy way. I'm not an outspoken. I am actually a bunch of flowers, which should be easy to remember.
Yep.
I'm also on Twitter, but that if you don't really want to follow that because it's a crypto
cryptocurrency.
I'm Chris F Crypto on Twitter as well, but that's really about crypto projects, and I very rarely post on there at all about the Pfizer and Co. So that's it.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much. Please thank all the volunteers for us. Thank you on behalf of all the parents of Brazil, and hopefully you'll take your life-saving work to the rest of the world as well. And we'll talk more about how to harness these fantastic efforts toward the future, not just toward the catastrophic past. Thank you so much, Dr. Flowers. You're a hero, as are your colleagues, heroes.
Thank you, Naomi, on behalf of all of the volunteers.
Hey, everyone. It's Dr. Naomi Wolf. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our valued partners at the Wellness Company. It's a time now when uncertainty is lurking everywhere. Preparedness is no longer an option at the margins, it's 100% necessary. And that's where the Wellness Company's Medical Emergency Kit comes in. The Wellness Company's Medical Emergency Kit contains crucial medications such as ivermectin, emergency antibiotics such as amoxicillin, antivirals, Z-Pak. The kit is backed by the expertise of the Wellness Company and their team of renowned medical professionals, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. James Thorpe, Dr. Harvey Risch, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and other truth-seeking, truth-telling doctors. They have created a kit that sets the gold standard for safety and prevention, the ultimate preparedness solution. Don't wait for a medical crisis to catch you or your family off guard. Visit DailyCloutHealth.com and use promo code DailyClout for an exclusive 10% discount. Take charge of your preparedness and enjoy peace of mind. And please do support our wonderful sponsors, the Wellness Company. I wrote a book about the corruption of the beauty industry when I was 26 years old. And I've never promoted any skincare line because I didn't believe that they had honesty and integrity. This is the first that we've accepted as a sponsor. Charlotte is made by Charlene Bollinger, who has been a pioneer in natural remedies against cancer. And that's why I'm excited about this skincare line, because so many skincare products are toxic and have carcinogens or estrogen disruptors in them. In fact, the FDA says that you can call something non-toxic as long as it's only 49% toxic. So this is 100% non-toxic, and it is a luxury skincare line, but I think that it's very valuable nonetheless because it's got, like, the first ingredient after water is aloe barbadensis leaf juice, which is real aloe. There's citrus reticulata peel, which is orange peel. There's thyme vulgaris flower leaf extract, thyme extract. There's glycerin, which I've talked about. Here's Loki. On the Wellness and Beauty series that I'm doing, glycerin is so good for your skin. It's a secret that women knew in the 19th century would protect your skin. So that's why I'm thrilled that there are sponsors. You're putting this on your skin every day, and put something on your skin that will protect it and nourish it. So this is Naomi Wolf. I'm 61 years old, which I happily tell everybody because age doesn't worry me anymore since I've discovered all these non-toxic alternative remedies. Thank you, Charlotte Beauty, for being our sponsor, and please support our wonderful sponsors at Charlotte Beauty. Go to charlotte.beauty, promo code DailyClout, and enjoy this lovely product. Thank you.